Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The tension in Genoa City reached an all-time high as Jack Abbott, with a steely determination that could rival even Victor Newman's, sat in his office with the DNA results in his hand, his heart pounding yet his mind razor-sharp, knowing that the truth he had uncovered could shake the very foundations of the Newman-Abbott legacy. And he had to decide carefully how to reveal it, knowing full well that every word, every pause, every subtle inflection could send ripples through the already fragile family dynamics. Jack had been suspicious for months, ever since subtle hints and inconsistencies in Victoria's past had started to surface, small things like mismatched birth records, whispered comments from old acquaintances, and even Nikki's occasional hesitations whenever the subject of Victoria's paternity came up, all of which gnawed at him like an invisible predator. And now, holding the incontrovertible proof in his hands, proof that Victoria was not Victor's biological daughter, he felt a mix of vindication and dread, for he knew this revelation could destroy his mother, shake Victoria's sense of identity to its core, and ignite a firestorm between him and Victor, whose temper and pride were legendary in Genoa City. Meanwhile, Nikki Newman, who had kept the secret buried for decades, sat across town in her elegantly understated living room, staring at her hands with a sense of mounting anxiety and regret, fully aware that the truth she had hidden from Victor, the man she loved, feared, and respected in equal measure, was about to explode into their lives like a carefully stacked powder keg. And Nikki's mind raced back to the pivotal moments, the choices she had made, the times she had smiled or nodded, all while hiding the ultimate secret, and she could feel the weight of the decades pressing down on her. The constant tension of pretending, of deflecting questions, of fearing that one slip, one careless remark could unravel everything. Yet she had convinced herself that she was protecting Victor, that she was safeguarding the family, that sparing him this truth was an act of love. But now, with Jack's impending revelation, the lie could no longer stand, and the inevitability of confrontation loomed over her like a storm cloud, dark, threatening, and unstoppable. Victor Newman, on the other hand, remained blissfully unaware of the ticking time bomb, engrossed in his empire building, in his usual combative negotiations with business rivals, and in his complex, often tumultuous relationships with those around him. Yet the undercurrent of tension in Genoa City was palpable, the atmosphere thick with unspoken truths, half-hidden glances, and nervous anticipation, for Victor had always prided himself on knowing everything, on being the master of the chessboard. Yet unknowingly, Jack was about to deliver a checkmate that even Victor, for all his cunning, could not have anticipated. And as Jack made his way to the Newman mansion, DNA results securely in his briefcase, each step felt weighted with history, memory, and the knowledge that lives were about to be forever altered. The moment Jack entered the mansion, the air seemed to crackle with electricity, Nikki's eyes meeting his with a mixture of fear and pleading, knowing that whatever happened next could either break or redefine the bonds between them. And Jack, with a solemn expression, laid the results on the polished table, the papers stark and cold against the warm, familiar setting, and slowly, deliberately he spoke, his voice calm yet edged with authority, telling Victor the truth that Victoria was not his biological daughter, that the woman he had raised as his own had been, in truth, the product of a secret past that Nikki had kept hidden from him. And Victor, initially frozen in disbelief, his mind racing, heart pounding, eyes narrowing as the words sank in, felt a storm of emotions, rage, betrayal, confusion, and a profound sense of loss, for he had always believed he knew the entire scope of his family, and now the foundation of that belief had crumbled in an instant. Victoria, who had been in another room, overhearing fragments of the conversation, rushed in as the tension reached its apex, and when Jack confirmed the DNA results, her world shattered in an instant, her identity, her sense of self, and her understanding of family all thrown into chaos, tears streaming down her face, questions tumbling from her lips in a torrent of emotion, demanding answers from Nikki, from Jack, from Victor, each one sharper, more desperate than the last. And Nikki, finally, unable to contain herself, confessed the truth, her voice trembling as she admitted her decades-long secret, the reasons behind it, the fear of hurting Victor, the desire to protect Victoria from the painful reality, and the guilt that had haunted her for years. And as the room filled with the sound of broken hearts, sobs, and anguished silence, Victor's legendary composure cracked, his voice rising in anger and hurt, demanding explanations, accountability, and the truth behind every decision, while Jack watched, his own emotions a mix of triumph and sympathy, knowing that while justice had been served in the form of truth, the collateral damage was immense, and in that moment, the Newman mansion became a crucible of family, love, betrayal and revelation, where alliances shifted, relationships were tested, and the very definition of family was rewritten in real time. And as Victoria struggled to process the reality of not being Victor's biological daughter, she grappled with feelings of confusion, anger, sadness, and a desperate need to understand who she truly was, while Nikki tried to comfort her, offering what solace she could, acknowledging the pain that came with the secret she had kept, and as Victor paced, struggling between his anger toward Nikki and his love for Victoria, the room seemed to vibrate with the emotional intensity, the unspoken bonds, and the history of generations colliding with the present, and in the aftermath of the revelation, Jack quietly excused himself, sensing that his role in this drama had been fulfilled, yet aware that the fallout would continue for days, weeks, perhaps even months, as each member of the family came to terms with the truth, reconciled with their feelings, and navigated the complicated web of love, betrayal, and loyalty that defined the Newmans and the Abbotts. And as the dust settled, the characters were left to pick up the pieces of their fractured lives, each forever changed, each relationship recalibrated, and the city of Genoa City itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next twist, the next shock, the next revelation, knowing that in the world of the young and the restless, no secret remained buried forever, no lie could stand against the truth indefinitely, and that even in the darkest, most tumultuous moments, love, loyalty, and the relentless pursuit of justice and identity would continue to drive the lives of those at the center of this intricate, dramatic, and emotionally charged saga, leaving audiences breathless, heartbroken, and hungry for the next revelation, the next cliffhanger, the next scene where the tangled threads of family, business, passion, and betrayal would collide once more in an explosion of drama, emotion, and suspense, reminding viewers why the young and the restless had captivated generations with its blend of high-stakes intrigue, deeply flawed yet relatable characters, and the unyielding power of secrets to shape destinies. And as the credits metaphorically rolled in this chapter of the Newman Abbott saga, the echoes of this DNA revelation reverberated through every corner of the mansion, through every conversation, through every glance, and through every heart, leaving a lasting impact on Victoria, Nikki, Jack, Victor, and the intricate web of lives intertwined with theirs, a testament to the enduring drama, the emotional complexity, and the unending twists that make the young and the restless the iconic must-watch show it has always been. The revelation of Victoria not being Victor's biological daughter reverberated through the Newman mansion like a shockwave, leaving each person reeling in their own way, and while the initial moments had been dominated by anger, betrayal, and raw emotion, the hours that followed became a labyrinth of confrontation, introspection, and uneasy attempts at understanding. For Victor, who had always prided himself on control, found himself grappling with emotions that were simultaneously familiar and foreign, a volatile mix of paternal love, bruised pride, and profound disillusionment, his mind cycling rapidly between memories of Victoria's childhood, moments that had seemed ordinary but now took on a new, haunting significance, and the bitter realization that Nikki, the woman he trusted most, had not only kept this secret but had allowed him to believe in a false narrative for decades. And though his instinct was to lash out, to demand retribution, a quieter, more introspective part of him, one he rarely acknowledged the complexity of Nikki's motives, the fear and love intertwined with deception, and the impossibility of assigning simple blame in a situation layered with decades of choices and consequences. And yet the fire of betrayal burned brightly, flaring whenever Nikki moved, spoke, or tried to justify her actions, and with every breath, Victor's legendary temper threatened to overwhelm the fragile attempt at calm, creating an atmosphere so tense it felt as if the walls themselves might shatter under the weight of unspoken truths. Victoria, meanwhile, found herself suspended in a state of emotional purgatory, her mind a whirlwind of questions with no easy answers, each recollection of her upbringing now filtered through the lens of shocking revelation, memories of birthday parties, family dinners, and father-daughter moments suddenly tinged with uncertainty, and she felt the sharp pang of identity loss, a painful rupture in the foundation of self, that left her clinging to fragments of who she thought she was, desperate to reconcile the love she had always felt for Victor with the biological truth that now defined her differently. Yet even as confusion and sorrow consumed her, a spark of resilience ignited within, a fierce determination to assert herself, to demand transparency, to reclaim agency over her life and narrative, and with that determination came questions for Nikki, for Jack, and for Victor himself, questions about loyalty, truth, forgiveness, and whether the bonds of family could survive revelations so seismic. And when she confronted Nikki directly, her voice both trembling and sharp, the floodgates of suppressed emotion opened, exposing years of unspoken pain, unasked questions, and buried resentment, leaving Nikki struggling to respond, to explain, to justify, as tears mingled with words. And as the two women faced each other in a tense, fragile standoff, Jack observed silently, his own emotions complex, knowing that while he had delivered truth, he had also unleashed a maelstrom that could take years to calm, and he felt a heavy responsibility for the consequences, aware that every action, every revelation, had ripple effects beyond his initial intentions, and that the fragile equilibrium of the Newman Abbott families had been irreversibly altered. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner of Genoa City, characters who had long been entangled with the Newmans in business, romance, and rivalry sensed the tremors of upheaval, whispers of the revelation spreading like wildfire, and the city itself seemed to hold its breath, curious, judgmental, and emotionally invested in the fallout as Abby, Sharon, Kyle, and Phyllis, each in their respective spheres, processed the news, debating its implications, discussing loyalties, and quietly anticipating the inevitable conflicts that would arise. For in Genoa City, nothing remained contained for long, and the intertwining of personal and professional relationships ensured that even the smallest secret, once exposed, could cascade into chaos, leaving no one untouched. And as evening descended, casting long shadows through the mansion's hallways, Victor, still struggling to balance anger and reflection, confronted Jack privately, their conversation taut with unspoken history, competitive energy, and an unacknowledged respect. And as Jack presented the factual details, the timeline of events, and the incontrovertible proof, Victor listened, alternating between sharp rebuttals and reluctant acknowledgement, the dynamic between them a mix of rivalry, brotherhood, and mutual recognition of each other's intelligence and moral complexity. And though Victor's instinct was to seize the upper hand, to dominate the situation as he had so many times before, he also sensed that the truth, now laid bare, demanded more than aggression. It demanded understanding, introspection, and perhaps, though it pained him, a measure of humility. And as he wrestled with this, Nikki attempted to mediate, to soothe, to bridge the gap, her voice carrying both apology and explanation, recounting the circumstances, the fears, and the love that had motivated her to keep the secret hidden for so long. And as the words unfolded, Victor's anger ebbed slightly, replaced by a storm of conflicting emotions, a recognition of the human frailty that Nikki embodied, and an acknowledgement that the bonds of family were not solely defined by biology but by choice, sacrifice, and enduring connection. And yet, even as he considered forgiveness, a deep ache lingered, the realization that trust, once fractured, could never be fully restored, that the foundation of his identity as a father had been challenged in a way that left lasting scars. And as the night deepened, the mansion became a crucible of dialogue, reflection, and strategic maneuvering, with each character assessing their relationships, weighing loyalty against betrayal, and contemplating the next steps in a reality forever altered by the DNA revelation. And Victoria, in a private moment of solitude, considered the implications for her own life, the way her choices, ambitions, and romantic entanglements would now be reframed by the knowledge that her biological lineage differed from what she had always believed. And as she pondered her future, she felt a renewed sense of agency, a determination to define herself on her own terms, while simultaneously grappling with the emotional upheaval of re-evaluating her relationship with Victor and Nikki. And as dawn approached, casting a soft glow across the mansion, the city outside seemed poised for the next act of drama. Whispers of the revelation circulating through the media, business circles, and social spheres, ensuring that the impact would extend far beyond the walls of the Newman estate. And as the first rays of light illuminated the faces of those most affected, each person, Victor, Nikki, Victoria, Jack, and the extended family, prepared to navigate the intricate, emotionally charged, and ever-shifting landscape of truth, loyalty, and identity, knowing that in Genoa City, every revelation was a catalyst, every secret a potential powder keg, and every family bond, no matter how enduring, a fragile, dynamic force subject to the unpredictable tides of love, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of self-discovery. And as they each faced the unfolding day, the echoes of the DNA revelation continued to reverberate, shaping decisions, altering perceptions, and setting the stage for the next wave of confrontations, reconciliations, and shocking twists that would define the ongoing saga of the young and the restless, leaving audiences captivated, hearts pounding, and minds racing with anticipation for the consequences yet to come. For in a city where no secret remains buried, and where love and ambition collide with explosive consequences, the story was far from over, and the lives of those entangled in the Newman Abbott drama would continue to unfold in a turbulent, breathtaking narrative of power, passion, deception, and the unyielding search for truth, identity, and redemption. And even as some wounds began to show signs of healing, new tensions simmered beneath the surface, alliances would shift, and the intricate dance of familial loyalty, corporate ambition, and personal desire promised to keep every resident of Genoa City, and every viewer on the edge of their seat, heart and throat, waiting for the next revelation, the next betrayal, the next moment that would redefine everything they thought they knew about family, love, and the unbreakable bonds that tie people together, regardless of blood. And as Victoria contemplated the meaning of family, and Victor wrestled with the nuances of trust, and Nikki balanced guilt with the desire for reconciliation, and Jack weighed the consequences of exposing the truth against the fallout he had unleashed, it became clear that this DNA revelation was more than a plot twist. It was a catalyst for growth, conflict, and transformation, one that would resonate through every relationship, every business decision, every whispered conversation in Genoa City. And as the day progressed, each character found themselves at a crossroads, forced to confront the realities of their choices, the fragility of their relationships, and the ever-present power of secrets to both protect and destroy. And in this maelstrom of emotion, strategy, and revelation, one undeniable truth remained. In the young and the restless, no lie could stand forever, no secret could remain hidden, and the pursuit of truth, no matter how painful, was always destined to reshape the lives of those caught in its wake, leaving audiences captivated, hearts racing, and minds aching with anticipation for the next chapter in a saga defined by passion, betrayal, love, and the unrelenting quest for identity, justice, and connection in the complex, thrilling, and emotionally charged world of Genoa City. The revelation that Victoria was not Victor's biological daughter continued to hang over the Newman mansion like a dark, unrelenting cloud, shaping every glance, every word, and every breath taken within its walls. And as the hours turned into the afternoon, the emotional intensity only deepened, for Victoria, grappling with the shock, found herself pulled in conflicting directions. On one hand, the love and admiration she had always felt for Victor, the man who had raised her, guided her, and shaped her into the woman she had become, remained undeniable. Yet on the other hand, the knowledge that the foundation of her identity had been built on a lie gnawed at her, a persistent, insistent ache that no words could soothe, and she began to question not only who she was but who she could trust, not just within her family but in every interaction she had ever had, as if the truth had shattered an invisible lens through which she had always seen the world, and now the pieces were scattered, fragile, and disorienting, leaving her to navigate a landscape of emotion as treacherous as any business deal Victor himself had ever negotiated. Meanwhile, Victor, pacing through the mansion with the weight of betrayal pressing on him like a physical force, wrestled with a maelstrom of emotions he rarely allowed himself to acknowledge: rage, grief, disbelief, but also a reluctant understanding, however begrudging, of Nikki's motivations, the fear and love that had driven her to protect him from a truth she believed could harm him. And yet, even with that understanding, the wound ran deep, for Victor prided himself on control, on knowledge, on the power to manage outcomes, and now, for the first time in years, he felt blindsided, vulnerable, and profoundly human. And as he sat alone in his office, the New York skyline painting long shadows across his face, he thought not only about Victoria but about every relationship he had cultivated, every alliance formed, and every secret kept, realizing that the revelation had implications far beyond the family. It could reshape business deals, shift allegiances, and even affect the perception of his empire in the city. Yet amidst the chaos, a small, stubborn part of him recognized that while biology could not be changed, the bonds formed through years of love, guidance, and shared experience remained intact, complicated, yes, but not obliterated. And this duality, this tension between betrayal and enduring connection would define his interactions with Victoria and Nikki in the days to come. Nikki, still reeling from the fallout of her confession, oscillated between guilt, fear, and an overwhelming desire to protect Victoria and preserve what remained of the family she had nurtured. And she found herself at a crossroads, knowing that every word she spoke, every attempt at reconciliation, could either rebuild bridges or deepen fractures. And as she navigated the delicate terrain of apology and explanation, she became acutely aware that the path to redemption would not be immediate, that trust, once broken, required patience, consistency, and proof through action, and that Victoria's journey toward understanding, healing, and forgiveness would unfold on her own terms, influenced by emotions Nikki could only hope to respect. And yet, Nikki could not help but feel a sense of urgency, knowing that time and circumstance were not on her side, that the longer tension festered, the more permanent the emotional scars might become, and so she resolved to meet Victoria's anger with honesty, her sorrow with accountability, and her love with unwavering commitment, hoping that these measures might, over time, soften the blow of years of concealed truth. Jack, whose role as the deliverer of the DNA revelation had left him simultaneously triumphant and burdened with responsibility, observed the evolving dynamics with a keen, analytical eye, aware that every reaction, every word spoken in the mansion now carried weight, and that his decision to expose the truth, while morally justified in his view, had unleashed a cascade of consequences whose scope he was only beginning to grasp. And as he moved through the house, offering support to Victoria while engaging in cautious dialogue with Victor and Nikki, he found himself in a delicate balancing act, striving to maintain neutrality while also advocating for honesty, fairness, and the restoration of familial bonds in a situation rife with emotion and instability. And though he had expected resistance, he had not fully anticipated the depth of the raw, unfiltered emotions that surged through the room, nor the profound ways in which past grievances, unspoken resentments, and long-suppressed fears would surface in response to this single, explosive revelation. Beyond the mansion walls, the ripples of the DNA disclosure began to extend into the wider fabric of Genoa City, touching lives, stirring conversations, and reshaping perceptions as friends, business partners, and rivals alike learned of the upheaval in the Newman household. And in the offices of Newman Enterprises, whispers of the family drama mingled with urgent discussions about strategy, power, and influence, for in Genoa City, the personal was inseparable from the professional, and a revelation of this magnitude inevitably altered the delicate balance of power, alliance, and negotiation that had defined corporate and social hierarchies for years. And as each individual processed the news according to their own interests, loyalties, and ambitions, the city seemed to collectively hold its breath, anticipating the next move, the next confrontation, and the inevitable escalation of drama that defined life in the shadow of the Newman legacy. Sharon, Phyllis, Kyle, Abby, and other key figures in the city watched the developments with a mixture of curiosity, concern, and opportunism, each assessing how the revelation might affect their own lives, their relationships with the Newmans, and their positions within the intricate web of social, romantic, and business entanglements. And as these characters maneuvered around the fallout, forging new alliances and reconsidering old ones, the tension in Genoa City deepened, creating an atmosphere ripe for confrontation, reconciliation, and further shocking disclosures. And amidst this turbulence, Victoria sought refuge in quiet contemplation.